This episode of The Tome Show is brought to you by listeners like you. Thank you to our patrons at patreon.com/The Tome Show. Welcome to The Tome, a D&D news, reviews, and interview show, and I'm your co-host, Jeff Greiner. And this is an episode of The Tome Show Presents. Tome Show Presents is what we use when we're going to do a little special aside and discuss something that's a little different than we usual. And for this episode, it's all about friend of the show, panelist of Behind the DM Screen, and all-around great guy, Mike Shea. Welcome back, sir.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's fantastic.
That's good to have you. A whole episode all about Mike Shea.
Like my birthday.
Yeah.
Like 30 people show up just to hang out at my birthday.
Yeah, exactly.
Only it's you, one person.
One
That's
person.
cool.
Tracy was going to be here as well, and then she had a migraine, so I gave her the night off. Yeah. So tonight is all about Mike Shea. He has a new Kickstarter to promote the rise of the Lazy Gamemaster, and we're gonna get into all of that. But first, I want to dive into the origin story and timeline of Mike Shea.
Okay.
I want to note that this is not the retired para snowboarder, but this is the son of the acclaimed
science fiction writer.
I was gonna say
science fiction writer Mike Shea.
But you're the son of a science fiction writer,
I am.
Robert Shea.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
You write all kinds of gaming stuff, mostly D&D, but you've been a freelancer for all sorts of publishers. You've also done your own line of things, books, blogs, podcasts, streams,
everything I can do,
and whatever else I could,
whatever else I could get my fingers into.
So exactly. So Mike, I want to start off by asking you to tell me about fountain pens.
Sure. Let me tell you about fountain pens.
How did this all get started?
The Pilot Vanishing Point is my favorite fountain pen. I highly recommend it. It's a little on the expensive side. I don't know what it runs these days, now in our new economy. But it was like $110 for a fountain pen, which is, it's, as fountain pens go, not super pricey, but as normal pen people think of it, very pricey. Mm-hmm. The advantage of it, though, is it has its own inkwell. You can draw directly into it from ink, or you can use a cartridge. So if you prefer your cartridge inks or your bottled inks, it'll work with both. It also has a flippable nib. You can decide which nib you want for it. So if you like a fine point but want to switch to a medium point or go from a medium point to a bold point, you can do so, and it's only like another $20 because you just buy the nib. The nib is separate from the rest of the pen. That's very unique among pens. On top of the fact, it's a what do they call it? A retractable pen. It's really quite ingenious. So yeah, if you're looking for a fountain pen, I cannot recommend it sometimes is known as the Namiki Vanishing Point or the Pilot Vanishing Point.
So here's the important question: what does all of that have to do?
Right here.
What does my question about fountain pens have to do with your origin story?
I have no idea.
No.
No.
Years and
vanishing points.
Years and years and years ago, you used to tell me the story about how your blogging experience started by writing about fountain pens before you did.
That's probably my first paying blog.
Okay.
But it was not my first blogging. My first blogging was before there was blogging, and I had a Quake website for my Quake friend, not Quaker friends, but Quake, the video game Quake. And I was in Indiana, still in college, and this had been about 96, and the web was brand new, and I learned me some HTML by viewing source on other HTML pages, and I hand wrote my own page for my friends and I to make fun of each other and talk crap about Quake. We all had funny names. Mine was Revenge, and I had other friends with their funny names, and we would have screenshots of our Quake games. So that was kind of the beginning of the blog. And the John Carmack, well-known developer of id Software and Quake and Doom, he had a thing called the dot plan, and the dot plan was apparently some kind of Unix thing where you could sort of write a journal entry on your Unix server, and other people could visit your profile and read your little journal that you put up there, public journal. And that was kind of the beginning of blogs a long time ago. And I really liked that idea. So I've been kind of blogging ever since then. I blogged about home theater stuff. I blogged about the video game EverQuest, the computer game EverQuest. for a long time. Spent a long time, and that was kind of the first time that like I did it enough that the company who made the game paid attention to me and flew me out to Sony to talk to them about EverQuest, and I joined community summits to talk about the game and stuff like that, which tends to be a thing that happens to me. I get into something so much that the people who make it eventually, I'm so obsessed with it that people it gets attention, and the next thing you know, the companies kind of reach out to me, which also happened with D&D as well. But yeah, I've been doing this for I've been blogging for more than about 30 years. Yeah, probably about 30 years. And 18 of which has now been focused on D&D.
Now, I didn't know that your origin story took you through Indiana. Where about?
Yeah, Terre Haute, Indiana. I went to school at Indiana State University. It was my undergrad.
I almost ended up working at
really?
Indiana State. Yeah, I was a finalist for a position there, and almost ended up.
Was it the smell? Did the smell kind of push you away?
No. Well, so what pushed me away?
Terre Haute has a unique smell.
What pushed me away was that they hired somebody else.
Oh, well,
yeah. But no, I remember thinking to myself, boy, this would be a neat place to work and a like town to live in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like
all the much going on. There was like two major roads that crossed, and you go up and down one and go up and down the other. That was about it. I spent a lot of time at the mall.
And that's what the story was when I visited. Was they had industry there for a while, and then in the 70s and 80s, all the industry went overseas, and they converted in the 90s to being retail focused. Of course, right before the .coms came along and wiped that out. So I think the biggest income producer in Terre Haute right now is the prison, and they recently built a casino.
Yeah, right. So, it's been many years since I have been back.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're up to. Yeah.
Yep. So interesting that
my friends I made in college there are still my friends today. I talk to them. Nice. I talk to them all the time. I visit them regularly. Yeah, it's great.
Good. So all of that leads to blogging, which eventually, I believe, during the 4th edition era, leads to the Sly Flourish blog, which makes sense because Sly Flourish is a very 4th edition term.
Yep, rogue power. Yep.
Yeah.
Tide of Iron was taken. Tideofiron.com was taken.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. No, and that was that. I mean, it's an evocative name, but I would say at this point, Sly Flourish is probably more evocative of your work than it is of 4th edition D&D, because 4th edition has sort of gone away. Yeah. But your Sly Flourish has stuck around.
Yes, and it is interesting that in all of the products that have come out in the past 10 years, Wizards has not used Sly Flourish for anything else since. And I don't know what would happen if they did. Right? You know, so yeah. I mean, it's one of these, like, you go back in time, I don't know that I'm going to pick that name, frankly. Like, it doesn't scale very well. But now here it is. So whatever, right? Yep. What's done is done. Yeah.
So from the blog you started doing some streaming and recording those and releasing them as podcasts. And actually, I think maybe before you started
quite a ways after, quite a distance after that.
Although I was
on your show long before.
I think you were on the Tome show regularly long before you started doing it on your own.
Yeah. I think one of the catalysts for the whole concept of the Lazy Dungeon Master, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a very short time where we experimented with the idea of having a DM tip on the Tome show. You were going to do the Tome show, and then you were going to have like a little break, and then we were going to have a tip. And I think we did like 3, and you asked me if I would do them, and I was like, sure. And they were a little awkward because it was like me talking to myself for like 3 minutes about
sure.
Right. Now I do an hour where I talk about myself. So now but back then it was this like have a tip. And the first one I did was for the idea that the only game that matters is the next one you're going to run. And that has been an absolute staple of lazy DMing. I have it in my new book. I've had it in books over the last 10 years or so. As kind of a foundation of like, if you want to focus down your prep, do not worry about your whole campaign. Worry about the next session you're going to run. And that was on your show. That was I remember it because I remember how awkward it was to record it. It was like the only time I've ever, first time I'd recorded myself by myself. And it was weird. And
I mean, that's how the Tome show started, was me by myself for like a year.
Yeah, right. Well, it's the only way I do it because having guests is a pain in the so I only. Thank you for your work.
Yeah.
But on my show, I'm like, I'm just going to do my own show. I'm going to do it Sunday mornings. No one else is going to want to do anything. I'll do it by myself, and that'll work. And that's worked out. Yeah.
No, I always get the alert that you started streaming on it this Sunday morning. It's like, yeah, but I just sat down with my
Everyone's
breakfast and
barely
my
out of
tea,
bed.
and yeah.
Right? Haven't you gotten your orange juice yet?
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. So then from there, and today, from talking to you, it sounds like mostly the blog has more or less converted into a newsletter.
It's kind of funny. I mean, so it's one of those where like it is read as a newsletter probably 5 times higher than it's read as a blog article. I think that's about right. I'd have to go look for sure, but I think that for whatever piece I write, 5 times more reads are happening as an email newsletter than are happening as a blog post. For most of them, some of them stick around because they happen to hit a well-trod but underserved Google query, and then those get hit quite a lot. But generally it's there. But I still kind of think of it as I've shifted a bit in the writing to cut down the words. So it used to be I'd write 1,000, 1,500 word articles. Now I'm writing more in the 500 to 1,000 word articles. Right. I try to keep the word count shorter because I think people's attention for long form content is less anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to cut down and really focus on whatever the message of the article is, and then try to say that in 500 to 1,000, 500 words, and sometimes on the outside 1,000 words.
Now, when you say the
newsletter,
when you say the newsletter is read 5 times more, you mean you send 5 times more emails?
I can see how many.
You can see the reads.
More than that. Yeah, I can see reads. Yeah,
okay.
And so I have about 18,000 subscribers on the newsletter, and about half of those I can track the opens on them and see that somebody is actually opening them.
Yeah.
And then some of those I'll see clicks, and I presume the opens are reads. And it's about 5 times more reads on a given newsletter than on an article that gets posted to the website. But why not both? The other nice thing is like the article, the blog is a great archive of everything.
Right.
One of the things I do for my Patreon is the blog actually archives itself, I think, every week, and patrons can download the entire website in a zip file. So somebody can actually have the entire Sly Flourish website ready to go in a zip file locally on their computer, so that I don't even have to know that if the domain name ever disappears or whatever, I decide to go back to fountain pens. I'm done with D&D, and I'll get back to just talking about the Pilot Vanishing Point fountain pen. Then people can still have a copy of every one of the. It's about 1,000 articles now, so every one of the 1,000 articles is there in an archive.
Right on. So this begs the question, I would say. You're doing all this blogging, you're doing DM tips on the Tome Show, you're writing newsletters. We're going to get into the publications here in a second.
Yep. Twitter was big back then too.
Twitter, yeah. And you're giving a lot of DM tips.
Yeah.
You're giving a lot of advice.
Yes.
Mike, I'm going to word the question in the nice way.
I want to hear the mean one.
Well, the mean one is who the hell are you?
Yeah.
The nice way is like, okay, so why are you the person that gets to tell people how to play their games?
That's a good, not by my own hand, but by everyone else's hand in bothering to read me, right? Like, I think that's a big one, is that people, that everyone else has decided, and that's great, and I'm very happy to have been the person that they decided. But I think some of it is like having that experience of basically writing. I've written nonstop for 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I literally can't stop writing, and about whatever I'm interested in. And for me, writing is this is going to sound like pretentious, but it's like writing is thinking for me. Like writing is my ability to ponder a topic in a way that I can't just do with my own brain, right? I need to solidify my thought, and solidifying my thought into an artifact, and going through that is thinking for me. And it's very easy for me too. I remember when I was a kid in high school, the switch I made from writing being a pain in the ass to writing being something I like doing was in a short fiction class that I was in high school. And I had just read Neuromancer by William Gibson. I was 14 or 15 years old. And that book completely changed my my life, right? It was this book about, hey, look, computers aren't just for nerds. Computers are cool, right? Like, hey, this guy, the lead character is a computer hacker that wears a leather jacket. That's cool. And I wrote a cyberpunk short story that was clearly terrible, but it was twice the page count that the teacher had assigned. And it was the first time I realized, like, I'm really enjoying writing this thing. And I don't need to have it be just the bare minimum of what I'm writing. It also had tons of 4-letter words in it. And or not tons, but it had a handful. It had 2 or 3 4-letter words in it, including the bad F word. And my teacher at first gave me like a D and said, you can't use language like that in this assignment. And I said, if you pay attention to the characters, there's no way they would not be using a word like that. And the teacher said, okay, you get an A. Switched around. No one else was ever thinking about what their characters would say, so I'll give you an A. And by the way, it's only gonna be you and me reading it anyway, so I went from a D or D not needing the assignment to an A. And it kind of, at that point, I did a lot of journaling and I wrote a lot of other things, but at that point, like, I really started writing all the time. So the nice thing was, by the time I got into D&D, I was already in that mindset. I'd already written a ton of stuff for EverQuest. I wrote a ton of stuff about home theater stuff. I wrote a ton of stuff about video game things. So the cadence of being able to write every week, and I've kept it up now for, I don't know, I think it's like 18 years, an article a week for 18 years. And a lot of people, as we've all known that have been paying attention to bloggers, there are 2 kinds of articles every blogger typically writes: the apology for not blogging enough, right? And the promise to blog more often.
Uh-huh.
Right. And like every blogger I know would start, oh, I'm really sorry, I plan to write this all the time, but I've been very busy and I can't get around to it. And then, but I promise from now on I'll be writing more. And I wanted to make a whole blog that was nothing but those, right? Yeah. Where it's just every post was an apology for not posting enough. And I never had that problem. Like, for me, like, keeping up that cadence of writing an article every week. And now my process for that is even refined even further. And now it's refined even more because my wife now edits the articles. I didn't have, I never had another person editing them regularly. And now every week she edits them, and we go through a whole process for that. And that was very easy for me. So I think, like, just that consistency. So having all of that experience writing for a long time, and not just a consistency writing, but a desire to get better at it. Right. Like, I didn't want to be the 1 month writer who just did the same thing for 10 years, but actually trying to improve the writing I was doing. And I hope I have done so. Mixed with the cadence of continually doing it. I think it's people couldn't ignore it that much. Right. There was enough of it that there were only a handful of us back in the 4th edition day. Mm-hmm. We knew them all, right? Like, you did. You remember you had a player blog that was based on, like, hey, we're going to give tips for players.
I basically said, hey, Mike's killing it with Sly Flourish. Let me do the player version. I don't.
Yeah, right.
I commissioned artwork for it too, and I can't remember what I called it now.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was. I can't remember, but I remember it. So, so I think that really helps. Like, writing consistently. Yeah. And also the other big difference was I wasn't, like, writing about myself, right? I wasn't like, I have a show where I talk about my own game and I prep for my own game, and it gets the amount of views that it ought to get, which is about 1/6 of the views that a talk show gets, right? It's not a lot of people watch that, but I'm like, well, what the hell? I'll keep doing it. But generally speaking, I'm not writing about myself. I'm not writing about my experiences. I'm not writing about my own thing. I'm trying to pick a topic that's useful to the people who are reading it, and recognizing that that it's the other GMs that matter, and it's them that I'm trying to help. And I'm also not, like, telling them what to do. I'm experimenting with an idea. Every article is kind of experimenting with an idea, and some of them are wrong, right? Some of them don't work, right? I've got some where I look back and I'm like, that did not work, right? That was poor advice.
You started
like, lay it out in front of people and then see what works.
Yeah. You started by explaining that, like, writing is a thinking process for you,
right? Yeah.
And you can see it. Like, you can see it in the podcasts, when you come on Behind the DM Screen and you're talking through your games, and we're talking through, you and Sam and I are talking through how things are going in your game, and you're describing sort of the things you've been thinking a lot about lately, and then like the next week I'll see that you've written a blog post or a
Right.
newsletter article about
Sure.
that exact thing, and
Right.
then a year later it shows up in a
Pops
book,
back up. Yeah, right.
because
Yeah, sure.
you've been thinking about it, you've been
It's
developing it.
It's
Yeah,
refining more and more. Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it seems like that's more or less how this process has worked for you,
Yeah.
um, which eventually in what 2010-ish time period started turning into publications of you
Yeah.
actually like
Books.
writing
Yeah.
books.
Right.
And it starts with, I don't know the order off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
you had the epic running epic tier, lazy DM, and DM tips.
So there was one before that called Dungeon Master Tips,
Okay.
which was the very first one. That was in 2010. I had to go look it up. And that was in 2010. And that was my first package
Yeah.
of like, hey, here's a bunch of tips. And that book, is a little chat book kind of thing, right? There was
Mm-hmm.
no print on demand at drive through, for example. So I think you could get it print on demand at Lulu. I had set it up so you could get it print on demand at Lulu. The layout was Word, right? Like it was my crappy Word layout. And the
Uh-huh.
criticism it got was, this looks like a crappy Word layout. And I was like, it
Well,
is, right?
good as
Like
it is.
that's
Yep.
that's fair. That's a fair customer, fair criticism. And it was designed to kind of capture all of the tips that I had picked up and put into a blog and put it into a single book. And it was a great, like, again, so now we're talking what, 16 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I did that, because that gave me the experience to start of like, I need a layout person, right? Like I can't do this myself. And
Yep.
who do I talk to that could do it? And so yeah, Dungeon Master Tips, running epic tier games, and the Lazy Dungeon Master, the first Lazy
Yes.
Dungeon Master, my first three books that were all
And
of a kind of a similar, you know, like small paperback, staple bound, 48 pages.
yeah.
Like they were small books.
And you can see like the direct through line from the things you're talking about in the blog or in podcast or
Yeah,
whatever that you're
sure.
appearing on,
Yep.
into refining some of that and trying to write it up and put it out on
Yeah.
as these publications, which are
Yeah.
now available for free on your website,
Yeah. Yeah. I
slyflourish.com.
think all three of those are now available under a Creative Commons license for
Yep.
free. Yeah. Like I want the full text of those for free. Right.
Yep. And so then, if I'm not mistaken, the next thing you published, which is not for free, it's the first thing that you can get from Mike Shea that's not
Yeah.
a free product,
Right.
is, if I'm not mistaken, Aeon Wave.
Yeah, I think so. So I think I'm trying to remember if Aeon Wave came out before or after Lazy Dungeon Master did. I don't remember. And can you not get that for free? Have I not put the text out for free?
It's like $3 on drive-through.
Huh. I should make that available for free. I should put that out. Yeah. So right. I wanted to that was my first kind of adventure sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
And it was a cyberpunk based adventure for Fate Accelerate or Fate Accelerated.
Yeah.
And it was, I also the first time that I think it's the first time I commissioned art. So maybe it was, I think I might have done it before I did Lazy Dungeon. No, because I had Jared, I had commissioned Holman. I forget his name.
Von Hinneman?
Von Hinman, yeah, Jared Von Hinman. I commissioned a bunch of art from him for the other previous books. But I actually went and found, some folks who had made things for Fate and commissioned them to do some art for this, and they did. They came out really well. Yeah, and that was a really fun, like single session, cerebral but action focused scenario for Fate. Yeah, and really enjoyed that one. Yeah,
I played it with you. You ran it
Yeah.
for us at Gen Con when it was
Right.
still sort of in I don't know, beta test or whatever at that point.
Yeah.
And so I played it once, and then when it came out, I bought it, and I've run it now for two different groups over the years.
Yeah.
It's a really fun thing. And if I have any regrets for Aeon Wave, it's that there is a setting and a story that is implied in that adventure, and I wish there was more. So
yeah, there's some good mysteries in there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was real fun.
It's also one of the few times in your publications that you were very system specific. You've had a tendency in your actual publication. Now, in your blogs or whatever, you'll dig in deep on various systems or whatever. But in your actual publications, you tend to go pretty system agnostic.
Mostly, yeah. I'd say about half. About half of them are pretty system agnostic, and half maybe a little bit less.
I mean, even the ones that talk about being D&D things
are pretty easily converted.
You don't put mechanics in them for the most part. It's it's here's a bold word with the name of a stat block that you might find somewhere.
Sure.
So I would argue that's pretty. It's not
pretty agnostic. Yeah.
It's pretty agnostic. Yeah. It's
sure.
But Aeon Wave is not. Aeon Wave is
very
deep dive.
specific to Fate.
Here's how you run this in Fate.
Something that you would run it with Fate. Yeah.
So
and everything.
After that is when I feel like you hit sort of your publishing stride and you start thinking more large form systematic. Like Aeon Wave was an early attempt at a little bit better layout.
Yeah, I think Aeon Wave was also my first Kickstarter. It was the first time I launched it.
It may have been.
I think it was for $2,000, and I was super excited. Yeah.
Yep. And so then after that, you can tell that there's some thought in terms of the branding and the organization, and you kind of organize yourself into two different categories. You have your adventure style stuff, which is the Fantastic series, and then you have the advice stuff, which is the Lazy series.
Yep, correct. Yep, exactly.
And then
that's how we see our products breaking out.
Yes, although then you kind of have one of your more recent projects, maybe the last Kickstarter you had, which was
City of Arches.
Yeah, which is, I guess, kind of a fantastic, but it's not labeled that way.
I consider it. No, it's not labeled that way, but we consider it one of the Fantastic series.
Okay, even Grindelroot is listed as being, fantastic whatever.
Right, Fantastic Adventures Ruins of Grindelroot. Yeah. But we didn't say Fantastic Adventures City of Arches because it's not really an adventure.
No, because it's a setting. So, right? All the other Fantastic
breakout of. Right. Exactly. Yeah. All the rest are kind of adventure based.
Which
locations is also a little off, right? Because it's not
right. I suppose.
But we kind of have the Fantastic series and the Lazy GM series is how we sort of break up our product lines. Yeah.
Right. So you've got Fantastic layers, locations, adventures, and then the Fantastic Adventures Grindelroot.
Yep. And City of Arches. Yeah.
And then City of Arches, which is, again, a setting book. Although I suppose locations kind of is like a bunch of little settings as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of setting stuff in Grindelroot too. I'm really glad that we have a bunch of setting stuff in there. I hear people that have been running long campaigns that are well beyond the 10 adventures that are in that book because of the extra chapters. And there were all stretch goals. We're like, we'll put a bunch of stretch goal chapters in here. And we had an entire 5th to 20th level campaign arc that people have now played through. So it's pretty neat.
And then for the Lazy series, you've got Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, which was the sequel to the Lazy Dungeon Master, which is the one that's now for free and was a poorly laid out Word document.
No, that was better. No, we had a real layout.
Okay.
Yeah, Dungeon Master Tips was the one that had a crappy layout. That was the one that was just like me converting it into Word. Yeah.
And then the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master came with, or doesn't come with, but was kickstarted with the companion and the workbook products as
Not
well.
Quite. Yeah. So the workbook, the workbook was a stretch goal for the original Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master Kickstarter. And the irony there is the workbook was our second best-selling book. So even though we did it as an add-on to the first book, it turned out that over its life was a really good angle. It did really well, right? It didn't do better in Return. Return was number 1, but it was a high number 2, right? It was very close.
And then you did Forge of Foes, which is in your lazy DMing. Which is starting to convert into lazy GMing instead of DMing.
That was still right. That one was.
I think it was still labeled
still
DM.
30 to 40% focused on 5e specifically.
Okay.
Right, because that one had a lot of monster design math in it, and a lot of powers that were built with mathematics that were taught in 5th edition. But about 60% of it had monster advice articles that were pretty agnostic. You could use a lot of that for agnostic stuff. Yeah.
So arguably, Forge of Foes is the second most system specific product.
Yeah,
After
that
Aeon
one's pretty
was.
system specific. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and like, right. So like Return and the workbook, and then yeah, the one that we missed because we kind of had two Kickstarters for Return. We had the original Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master Kickstarter where it was print on demand, and that one also had the workbook as a print on demand option. And then later during COVID, we had our biggest Kickstarter, which was the Lazy DM's Companion. And that was kind of the third book of those three. But we also at that point did offset print runs of both Return and the workbook.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get a much nicer offset printed version of that. And that happened, yeah, I think that was in 2022 when we did that one. And we got super lucky in so many ways of launching it when everyone was home and wanted to play a lot of RPG stuff, and managed to slide in when the distribution, all the shipping problems that were going on because of COVID, we slid at just the right moments at just the right time on all of that. And so
nice.
We managed to deliver it. Yeah, we ended up printing we printed in two countries, two continents. We did one printing in Europe and one printing in North America. And so that means we had to proof 6 copies because it was 3 books each in 2 different places, and get those right, and then have them shipped and distributed to all the people who backed it then. It was the first time we'd ever done fulfillment that way. And we were way in the deep end of the pool at that point. Like,
I remember
so different.
I remember you feeling a little overwhelmed as you were juggling all of that.
It was, like I didn't, it was awful. I mean, it was great. It worked, and the products are great, and it actually built our business. It got to the point now where like it made sense to have a partnership with Michelle, and it made sense that we manage our own store. And definitely like the revenue was definitely better than it was with print on demand, right?
Sure.
When we were selling print on demand stuff. But boy, it was a deep end of it was a big difference. It's really where I think I was talking to Wolfgang Bauer, the CEO the chief kobold of Kobold Press.
Right.
And I said, I think I've turned into a publisher now. And he laughed. He's like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. And I was like, that's weird, right? Like, cause I never thought of myself as a publisher. I thought of myself as a writer, and I just would a self-published writer. And it was like, no, at this point, when you have books in shipping containers moving across the sea that you're managing and watching on your little map app, now you're in a different state. And the funny thing there is like, we never really wanted to do that, but now we know how, right? Now we've got all the contacts. I know who to talk to at book printing facilities. We already have warehouses with books in them. We already know everybody. We already know what that process is like. So we're not about to hand that off to anybody else now, right? Like we'll keep doing it because we know it. Michelle knows all the logistics and
was this also about the time that it got so overwhelming that you went down to part-time at your job?
Yeah.
And this became part of your job?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was right around the same time. It was a little bit before then. I was changing the kind of work I was doing in my day job anyway. So I was like, I could go from 40 to 32. And that was right around I think it was, so I took a sabbatical to write Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master.
Mm-hmm.
We had been making enough money that I could afford to take like an entire month off from work. And it was one of the best times of my life. Like that was amazing. Like it's rare in our adult lives to be able to just walk away for an entire month and work on something else. And I loved every minute of it. And that was really, I think a lot of what made Return work well was that I was just 100% dedicated every day to working on that book and doing, writing in the morning for 4 hours, going for a long walk, thinking about it, then coming home and researching a bunch of stuff and reading a bunch of books, figuring out what I was going to do the next day, and then cycling through for an entire month. And I loved it. And I did a little bit like it since, but mostly the books are getting written over a shorter period of time or longer periods of time in shorter amounts. But yeah, that was about when we were earning enough from the company that I could afford to take time off. And then during COVID, as the company grew after we did the offset printing, we were making more and more. And then it really became a question of like, well, I still need healthcare, but other than that, the salary that I was getting from my day job was fine, but not necessary. And it also helps that Michelle and our expenses are low, so we don't have a lot of other expenses to worry about. And so now I'm still working a day job. I work 20 hours a week at it because it's the easiest, most affordable way to keep healthcare. But but then our business is still doing well on its own. And my wife, however, did retire from her day job, and now is 100% on it. So yeah, when she retired from her day job, we spent about 6 or 8 months, for her to try out what it was like to work on this. She'd been around it so long anyway, that it wasn't a real big difference. And she came in while Forge of Foes was still going through fulfillment. So she managed a lot of the fulfillment for Forge of Foes, and then saw the entire process when we did City of Arches. And then after that said, yeah, I think she was into it. And at that point we changed our corporate structure from a sole proprietorship of me to a partnership of the two of us. Okay. And went through that whole process. And part of that also is like, we need to protect the company during COVID. Like if I die, what happens? Right. So we're like, we need to, we don't want to make sure that there's the legal structure in place so that, this thing is actually a thing that people can inherit.
So who's the boss and who's the talent then?
We are both equal. We both have our own angle. We have different kind of, we have a giant to-do list, or a giant list of like the things that we need to do. I think it's got like 200 different disciplines in it, like 200 different common things that we have to do. Mm-hmm. I wrote it up. Like I was like, let's have an honest to God, like write up. And we actually have like an SOP, right? Like a standard operating procedure guide. And it's there because they're like, anytime we have to do something twice, we're going to write it down so we never have to think about doing it a third time. Like we don't have to figure out a third time. And literally today, I was like, every time we do one of these, I have to set up like a press kit. And I forget until we're in the middle of the Kickstarter. I'm like, I should have a press kit. And we should be doing that weeks before we have a Kickstarter. Let's write that in our thing. Like we need to write that down. Right? So next time we're doing this, we'll have a press kit before we... because I got all these people who are like, hey, do you have any art? And I'm like, of course I have art, but I should have given it to them in the first place. So we have that procedure down, and it's worked out. And we were both like, I don't know if it's going to work. Like, I don't want to drive her crazy. And she didn't want to be driven crazy. Right. And there was some, like, she's like, the amount of that you work, I'm afraid that you're going to be putting the pressure on me to work at that same pace. And I said, I will make sure not to. Right. We will make sure that the jobs we have are the jobs that we can have. There are times though, where it's 10:30 at night and we're getting ready to go to bed, and somebody said, hey man, I'm in Sweden and I ordered the books, but I put them to the wrong address. And we're like, if we do not do it right now, we will ship $200 worth of books to the wrong address and they will get lost and we will lose them. And we will have to ship another $200 of books to somebody to the right address. So we need to handle it right now before it gets, goes out to the warehouse and gets shipped. So it's a 24/7 job sometimes.
So how long, now that you're a publishing company?
Yeah.
How long before you start publishing other people's work?
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So we've already made that choice. We're like, there's one part of this job that we like, and that's that it's, that I like anyway. And that's that it's my stuff. Like I love writing, right? I mean, again, I've been doing it for 30 years. It's my favorite part. There's a lot of logistical stuff that, like, we're now proficient at. I wouldn't say we enjoy it. Like, it's no fun to be like, hey, what's the new GPSR law like in Europe, and how is that going to affect taxes between our UK and our, EU distribution hub? Like, no one wants that. That's not when you're getting into role-playing games. That's not the exciting part, right? Of figuring out international tax law.
Right.
But we're like, if we're going to sell the books, we got to figure it out. Right. And so there's a lot of stuff like that. And we don't want to give that to someone else. Right. Like we don't want that to be the job. Right. We want the job to be the RPG side of it.
I can't imagine like it's your books and whatever. It's small enough run. Like you're invested enough that when you get that email at 10:30 at night,
we're ready to do it.
Dealing with it is important. But when it's somebody else's work, well, that sucks.
And we have tiny little pieces of it. So I did partner with James Intercasso and Scott Gray and Teo Sabadia on a couple of projects.
Yeah.
And it's on occasion, like when we did the Forge of Foes Kickstarter, we included Scott's work that he had independently published and Teos's work that he had independently published. And we still occasionally get like an email that's like, oh, hey, I ordered this stuff. Can we get it? And it's pretty easy for us to fulfill it. But those are things we're actually fulfilling someone else's thing.
Right.
But we don't sell them. It was because it was part of that Kickstarter. And
I
then
see.
the reality is Scott and Teos are paying us a fee out of the royalties for us to manage that kind of stuff. Small, right?
Yeah.
But there's Michelle and I are like, look, if we're managing the financing and the delivery of this stuff, then we're going to get a little extra.
Right.
But we don't do it because we want to, right? Like
Right.
that's part of the rest of the gig that we've got. Yeah.
Right on. And so then we mentioned City of Arches, which is a setting book, although it has some campaign frames and
Yep.
adventure
Yep.
sort of kind of adventures, but it's a very Sly Flourish approach to adventures, right? It's sort of
super.
Here's the kind of things that could happen, and here's the kind of things you might fight, and go look up your own stat blocks and figure out your own DCs and mechanics and whatever.
Yeah. Right.
And now you've launched the latest in the Empire, the rise of the Lazy Gamemaster. So it's no longer a dungeon master; it's a game master.
Correct. Yeah.
We're fully embracing
that was a big shift. Yep.
And yet I imagine, like, I don't know, in vibe, it's not a huge shift because you've always been pretty system agnostic anyway.
Yeah, between Return and Rise, like Return is also a very system agnostic book. Like I don't know that there's anything in there that's specific to 5e
I agree.
And to D&D. But definitely at that time, D&D and 5e was by far the majority of the kind of games that were being played, right? And had until I would say pretty recently. And you can still argue even now.
Yeah.
But now there's a lot more attention being applied to many other games too, I think. And I think like the deeper that GMs get into the hobby, the more they're starting to kind of recognize other games that are out there and try other games and play other games. And particularly learn things from other games that they can bring back to whatever game they're running, whether it's D&D or not. So I wanted to make that clear line, and I had done this shift before. Now I'll be straight. It happened at the OGL, right? As soon as the OGL catastrophe occurred, I realized like I'm hitched up to a horse that I can't trust anymore, right? Like I don't know what they're going to, and they fixed it, and now it's Creative Commons and everything's great, right? We love it. But I was still tied too tightly to one company and whatever whims they have.
Right.
And at that point, I rebranded my show. I rebranded a lot of stuff to say I am moving from DM to GM, and I am. I remember I had a video that I did back then where like I was like, the only thing I'm tied to are GMs, are the people out there that are running games. I am not tied to any other kind of entity. And I remember I had a video I'm very proud of where I said like, whatever game you're playing, I'm on your side. Like if you're playing D&D, I'm on your side. If you're playing Pathfinder, I'm on your side. If you're playing Fate, I'm on your side. Like you're playing RPGs, I'm on your side. I don't care which one. And I really embraced that. And there was, like I've had debates with friends of mine, but like, I don't know if that's a good idea, right? You're breaking away from the thing that people originally came to you for, which was focused on D&D stuff, 4th edition D&D, 5th edition D&D, right? You look at the articles on Sly Flourish, and it's funny because I'll run into them, and I still have some very 5e focused articles, like in my drafts folder that I haven't published. And I'm like, well, I'm probably not going to do that one, right? Because now there's lots of, I want my stuff to be more universally valuable than that. So going from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, as much as it was system agnostic anyway, to Rise of the Lazy Gamemaster was this kind of shift of like, hey, this is a book about RPGs, right? This is a book about GMs running RPGs. And we certainly mentioned D&D in it. We mentioned a lot of games in it, right? And luckily it works well for all of them.
Well, and that's sort of what I'm saying though, is that even the earlier Lazy stuff was, other than Forge of Foes, was pretty system agnostic to the point that like it almost felt like it was the right call to call it the Lazy Dungeon Master because D&D was the 800-pound gorilla and sort of drafting off of their wake, made a lot of sense.
I mean, most DMs were DMs, so they kind of worked that way.
At this point, you've built enough of a reputation and have enough of a fan base that you can make the shift to calling yourself what you've always been doing. Without losing anybody over it,
seems that's worked out. Like you never know, right? But I mean, I feel right. I felt like that worked out again as soon as I kind of rebranded my shows and everything like that. And also not just in kind of what I called them, but even the topics I was covering and that kind of drive. I remember, I think it was Scipio who's here in the chat, who kind of said to me, like, you talk a lot about other games, but you're not really reviewing other games. And I was like, I'm going to start doing that. And so I have now the show itself. I talk a lot about other games. I talk about a lot of other games that you can get that are either kickstarted or like humble bundles, where you're getting these, humble bundles and bundles of holding, where you're getting these massive collections of RPGs for very little money. I've been playing a lot of other RPGs, right? I've been playing them. I've been doing reviews of them. I've been, kind of taking ideas from them, and that really worked. And my audience didn't not only shrink but grew.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, so I think it made sense. And there was kind of no question that Rise was going to be a system agnostic book, that it was going to be a book that is useful for most GMs, for most systems.
Well, and as we've discussed, most of your books are pretty system agnostic.
Right. But
Talk about why. Why the early decision to be system agnostic? I can think of multiple reasons why one might make that decision. I'm curious what your thought process was.
It helped. So the original Lazy Dungeon Master was written between 4th edition and 5th edition D&D. And there was a major difference between those two versions of D&D, and a major difference in what the games expected from game masters when they're running them. And I remember, because like Greg Bilsland, who's now, I think, like the senior producer of Dungeons and Dragons at Wizards of the Coast currently, and he was also a producer of Dungeons and Dragons back in the 4th edition days. He left and then came back.
He left for a while, yeah.
Yeah, and he was my, I like to refer to him as my handler when I was doing freelance work for Wizards for 4th edition D&D. And I was following all the styles and all the designs that they had for 4th edition D&D. And then he asked myself and Scott Gray and Teo Sabadia to work on Vault of the Dracolich, which was going to be for D&D Next. So it was before D&D. And I designed a map for it and sent it in, and he kicked it back and said, we don't do those kinds of maps anymore. And I was like, this was exactly the kind of map that we had done with 4th edition D&D, and now we're not doing those with 5th edition D&D. And it was really linear versus, linear maps versus maps that have lots of different potential paths through them, right? And that was a real shift. And I was like, the same guy is telling me to do it differently, right? Like the producer at Wizards of the Coast is the one that's saying like, hey, we don't do it that way anymore. So there was this major shift, which meant that and Lazy Dungeon Master was really a book about, wow, we used to do things a certain way when we were designing 4th edition scenarios and adventures. And it's very different now. And a lot of the kind of rules that we keep in mind for how we design it are shifting and changing. So when I wrote that book, I had 2 editions of D&D in my head. And I think having 2 meant it also works for other things too. It can expand beyond 2. Also, there was this bridge between the 2 where we were playing games like 13th Age, games like Fate. There were a lot of other, Dungeon World was out back then, right? So we were starting to see these other styles of games that had very different approaches to how they worked out. And I really liked the idea of like, wow, we can take a lot from all of these and bring them in. And so I think that kind of sat and set in well in the original Lazy Dungeon Master, and then of course Return picked that up and continued to go with it, and so on.
Yeah. So you've in some ways you've written this book twice before, maybe 3 times before if you include the companion. Why come back to the Lazy GM series with the Rise?
So I would certainly not say that any of them are the same book by any stretch of the imagination. And the way I like to think of it, and the way I when I thought about what this is, and when I sat down to originally think of the design of the book, like what is this going to have in it, and how is it going to sit, and why? I've got Return, and people still love it, and it still sells. Like, do we need something else? But the answer is like, it's not about taking the same concept and rewriting it multiple times. It's about taking a different view and a different lens to the same problem, right? Or to the same topipic.
So is it a little bit like a game company doing a new edition or a new half edition just to sell more core books?
No. Yeah, no, nothing like that. Right. Yeah. Certainly not to sell more books. It's kind of selling. Like, what's easy? Not writing one.
Yeah.
And sitting back and enjoying the royalties of the old one. Like,
you could go write other things and
right. So yeah, I could go do other things. So no, in that case it's not. And in that case it's really like I got to do it. And I felt that way with Return, from Lazy Dungeon Master to Return.
Mm-hmm.
That one, I felt like the process is very different between those two books,
Mm-hmm.
right? The process of prep that is outlined in the Lazy Dungeon Master is very different than what's in Return. And I wrote Return because I felt like, oh, I'm not even following my own advice anymore.
Yeah,
right?
Which one was all about the note cards? Was that the original Lazy?
That was the original. Was
Yeah,
like 3 note cards, 15-minute prep, scenes, NPCs, and like locations, and that was it, right? And off you went. And the but Return, there were some elements that I brought in there. I'm like, oh my god, these are game-changing elements. And the big one was secrets and clues, like this idea of like, hey, you have these one-line fortune cookie size bits of lore that you can assign to anything in the game while you're running the game, and that it answered a bunch of questions. Like, what the hell does exploration mean? Is a question that has plagued, RPGs for a while. And to me, secrets and clues are that the reward for exploration. They fit well there. That question of like, how do you prepare to improvise? That's an oxymoron. What does that even mean? Well, secrets and clues answer that, right? You prepare to improvise because you're writing down bits of lore that you get to decide what appears when by the actions that are taking place in the game. So it felt like such a powerhouse idea that I'm like, I got to put that somewhere, and it's not in the old book, right? So Return really said that, and I had kind of the same fear that I have about Rise, which is like, am I just going to eat the old book, but also the new one's not going to be any good, and now just everybody hates all of it, right? And turned out no, it really worked, and there are now way, way, way more people who have read Return than have read the original Lazy Dungeon Master,
even though it's free.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, right. Like they don't look for it, right? And the book that everyone's recommending to other people is Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, which of course is scary now. Return also had kind of a different focus of what it looked at. It focused on how you prep your game, how you run your game, and how you think about your game. Those are the 3 main sections of Return. But the part that everybody kind of focuses on is the 8 steps, steps of Lazy G, including myself, right? The how you run your game and how you think about your game have really good advice that I still stand by 100%. But it isn't as practical as the focus on what do you do with those 8 steps. So Rise is taking a different lens on the same thing of saying we have these 8 steps, but also we've now used them for 8 years I've used them in almost I think it's pretty close to 1,000 games. And also tons of feedback from people, because 4 times more people are playing RPGs now than were playing when I wrote Rise, right? It's a much bigger group of people. So I'm getting lots of feedback about it, and lots of feedback and like, hey, these are parts I have trouble with, and lots of feedback like, oh, this is really useful. So we wanted to take that advice and the other ways to expand it and tie them back to those same 8 steps. And then instead of focusing how you prep your game, how you run your game, and how you think about your game, focusing on the 8 steps that have been expanded over 8 years, right? Each of which have been expanded over 8 years to support, different styles of play, different game systems that you're running, different parts, different moments of your own campaign. Then campaign planning, which is getting blown way up from previous things that I've done talking about campaign planning. Adventure types, the common adventure types that we often find ourselves running, how you customize the 8 steps for those, how you the procedures that you use to run those styles of play, the common pitfalls that show up when you try to run adventure types like that, and how do you get around those pitfalls. And then a much bigger expanded Lazy GM toolkit of all the little tips and tricks that I've collected and that other people have come up with and other game systems have come up with that are really good, easy to use tools that we can drop into our game to make our games better. And then other odds and ends throughout the book. So all 3 books, I mean, like, I'm selling a package as part of the Kickstarter that includes all of the books, right? And I wouldn't do that if I'm like, you only really need this one. You don't need the other ones anymore. Because I'm like, no, the other ones have good, useful stuff in me. The original Lazy Dungeon Master, people still like it. They're like, oh, there's parts of that I really like that aren't in the other books.
But you don't need them. Like you don't need to have Return to appreciate Rise. But they're doing slightly different things building.
I mean, I really like, imagine you have this node of like, hey, the 8 steps of Lazy GM prep and kind of a center thing, and then you have these lenses that are looking at that from different angles. Each of the books are doing that lens from a different angle, and every one of those is independent. So of the 6 Lazy GM books now, right? Lazy Dungeon Master, Return, Workbook, Companion, and Rise. All of them are independent. Any one of those you can buy and use. You don't need to have the other book in order to get value from the other one. But they also all, in my opinion, work really well together. You've got a complete picture, or a more complete picture. Oh, and Forge of Foes. I forgot Forge of Foes in there too for the Monsters Standpoint. So 7? I don't know. It's a lot of books. And that gives you all of these different angles to look at this common problem. So I think like people who are really into it and really want to explore the whole topic of game mastering and efficient game mastering, lazy game mastering, and they want toolkits to help them do it. They want ideas that they can run. They want to think deeply about the monsters they run in boss fights and all this stuff. Like the whole package is going to be useful for them. Like none of the books I think ate any of the others.
Scipio says they fit like Voltron. They all can work independently as a lion, but then they can turn into one giant
together and punch giant rocks. Yeah,
that's right. Perfect.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
So, anything else you want?
Scipio's seen it, right? Scipio. So one of the things that patrons, the hero tier patrons of Sly Flourish, have watched this thing develop over the past 9 months or so, and have provided a ton of feedback on it. And they are very familiar with the concept of return. And I don't think I've had anybody that was like, wow, this just completely validates all the stuff that's in return, right? Like nobody's said that. Yeah.
Can I still use note cards?
You can do whatever you want. Yeah. And I think that's
obviously.
Yeah. I think that's one of the, there's a few things that I think make this idea work and a lot of reasons. And one of them is we have a hobby that actually offers very little practical guidance for how to do this craft, right? Like, what are you supposed to do when you're sitting down to prep a game? Even the latest Dungeon Master's Guide, right? The most amount of energy and effort that has gone into a single book about dungeon mastering doesn't offer concrete advice for how to do prep, right?
Right.
There are some systems that do. Dungeon World does, Apocalypse World does, Mothership does. Other books do, slightly better jobs at saying, hey, for this system, this is how you can kind of treat your first session and stuff like that. But they're pretty fuzzy, and it's because they don't want to put a system in and then have everybody say, oh, I don't like that system. I think, right, that people are so different and the approaches are so different that people are nervous about kind of putting that constraint in place.
Right.
And yet I think a lot of people are like, just help me out, like help me with something, right? Like, I don't know what to do. And so having something, even if, I don't claim it's the best perfect system ever, but it's something.
It's a system. Yeah.
It's a system. And some people just need a system.
All those games should just put one line in all of their DMGs or whatever that says, if you want an example of a system on how to do your game prep,
go buy. Yeah, maybe a QR code. If they could put a QR code there too, that'd be perfect.
That'd be great.
I'd be all for that. I'd be very happy to support that. But one of the other note card thing, one of the other things that I think makes this process work is you can do it with anything. I've done it with little notebooks. I've done it with index cards. I've done it with multiple online tools. There are people who have built entire tool sets to manage the 8 steps for them. And also people who do it by hand in a notebook every time. So it's very it's system agnostic in like the RPG system you're doing, and tool agnostic in how you actually do it. And I think that makes it really strong too. It means that it's agnostic in the tool sets that you want to use. And I think people appreciate that. I appreciate it. I've now switched the system that I use to keep track of games at least 3 or 4 times in the past 8 years or so.
Nice. Yeah, I've recently.
So yes, you can use your index cards.
Oh, good. I've recently changed my system. Now I do all of my prep in a Google Doc, and I just have a million tabs.
OneNote, OneNote is very popular. The one that all the nerds that I circle with are using Obsidian these days, and I absolutely love Obsidian.
One of the things
I switched from Obsidian from Notion. I used to use Notion. I had a big Lazy DM template in Notion, and people use that a lot. And then I kind of broke away from Notion to do Obsidian.
My recent discovery just in the last month or so, not discovery, but thing I've started doing, because I run a lot of published campaigns.
Yeah, right.
But it's always about like 75% at most published campaign, and the rest of it I'm
Yeah,
tailoring,
sure.
I'm modifying.
Yeah, well,
whatever.
you also take 3 published campaigns and mash them together.
I tend to do that too. So
Yeah.
what I've started doing the last month or so, and then maybe it helps because I'm on summer break and I'm a professor on summer break and I have more time.
Right.
But I've been copying and pasting out of the D&D Beyond chapter, putting it into my Google Doc, and then just changing the text, and then I run it from my Google Doc instead of and never go to the actual book. So,
yeah, right.
But then I can tailor the read aloud text to reference my characters and all the kinds of stuff. So
yeah.
but I can easily bring in all kinds of prep notes and stuff for with all 8 steps.
Do you use the 8 steps, or do you have your own process?
I have used the 8 steps in the past. It's especially helpful when I'm homebrewing, as opposed to running a published thing.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the things we covered. That wasn't the lead. That wasn't a lead for it, but I'm going to use it anyway. One of the things we cover is like, how does the process change when you are running like published adventures versus homebrew adventures, or published campaigns versus homebrew campaigns, or single session games versus short form campaigns and long form campaigns. And a lot of it is like, well, sometimes you don't need all 8 steps. Like, oh, yeah, I got the locations covered. Monsters are covered. Treasure is covered. Right. And one that even because I've run a lot of both, right? I've run a lot of homebrew stuff and I had run a lot of published campaign stuff. And there were many times where I'm like, hey, I just don't need that step this week. Right. I'm good. And I just don't do it. And so, that one of the designs of the steps is you only use the steps that you need. You don't have to do the ones that you don't.
I am interested now in going back and since I'm changing my published adventure campaign so much, I am interested in going back and going through all the 8 steps. And just seeing how it fits in, and going back to that a little bit. Although now maybe I should wait until Rise comes out and I can do it.
I mean, the steps are the same steps, so there's no, that's the other part of it, right? Is there's no difference. The same 8 steps are the same 8 steps, and they've always had the flexibility in them for you to be able to put the things you need to put in those steps. What this book does that's a little different is it expands out on showing all of the examples of the kinds of things that you would put in any one given step. When you're talking about the characters, what are the different things that you might track when you're reviewing the characters as part of step 1? What does scenes mean, right? When you have a scene step where you're articulating the scenes that could happen in your next session, is it the 5 linear scenes that are going to occur? Is it really only an intro scene and then the explore the dungeon scene, which is a great big one, and then boss fight, right? And so, or is it the hooks, right? Instead of scenes, are you putting in the hook that is going to draw people into the adventure? One of the things I commonly put in the scene step are what are the 3 next choices that the characters are going to have, so that I can get in front of the players early so they can pick one, and then I know what to prep next. Right? That's a big one.
Well, this summer I've been trying to force myself to spend like an hour of dedicated reading time, because I recently put together a spreadsheet of every adventure that I own. Some of them are an anthology or whatever. I have hundreds of them, and I haven't read more than 10%. So this summer I'm forcing myself. I'm not forcing myself. I'm giving myself an hour of dedicated reading time,
a day?
Per day.
Great.
And so far, 100% of that time, almost 100% of that time, has been trying to finish reading City of Arches, because I enjoyed the hell out of that, but I only got halfway through and then I got distracted. So
awesome.
I've been going back to the City of Arches, and now I'm eager to start trying to go back to Return and see if I can integrate these 8 steps more into helping me with the homebrewing of my campaign. So I want to ask 2 more questions before I let you go. This one, the first of the 2 is, you have a lot of jobs, and if you really break it down, there's we know publisher or fulfillment is not one of your favorite jobs,
right?
But you are an adventure writer, you're an advice writer, you're a setting writer, you write freelance for other companies, and you're an influencer. You're a gaming influencer. That's at least 5 jobs that you have to dedicate a significant amount of time to.
Yeah.
Which one is the best?
Oh, writing. It's very easy.
But writing what?
So writing anything is good. So I enjoy any of the acts of writing. I love. There are some that are far easier for me than others. So writing the advice stuff is by far the easiest thing for me to write, and that's because I've been writing that style forever.
Right.
And so that for me, I mean, I hope, you never really know. Like self-evaluation is hard. So I can't even say like, oh, I think I'm good at it. But I think that like, for me to kind of say like, I have a thing I want to say.
Yeah.
I have a, and I'm good at like trying, I think I'm good at like trying to take like the core nugget of what it is I'm trying to explain it as clearly as I can. And then, writing the rest of it to support that, that main thing. If I'm going to talk about the tableless oracle die, right? I want to say like, guess what? You don't need a table to use a die to help you figure out what craziness is happening in your game. You can build the table on the fly in your head, and here's how you can do that, right? And write a whole 500 words on that. So that kind of stuff is very easy. I joke about Rise that I had put off writing it for a while. I really wanted to see how the RPG industry shook out after the release of D&D 2024. I wanted to kind of, spend the time to see like how everything was going. A lot of new games coming out, Daggerheart coming out, and everything else. So I really wanted to see like where this whole thing was going and how people felt about it before I actually sat down and wrote it. And so we were finishing up City of Arches, and I was telling Michelle like, I'm not going to write it yet. I'm not going to write it yet. And then we were on a walk, and I was like, no, I'm not starting it yet. I'm not going to start. I don't know when I'll get started. And then one day I said, I think I'm going to start it today. I think I'm going to start working on Rise today. First, I'm going to write the first words. And then I feel like it was the next day. I'm like, yeah, I finished it. Like I finished writing Rise, right? It really was effortless for me to write the first draft of Rise. And nice. I had kind of a loose outline, but a lot of what I did was like, I'm writing and I'm writing and I'm writing. And while I'm writing, I'm like, oh, I need to add this. I need to add this. And I would keep a little notebook with me and write down the 100 other things that I knew needed to be in this. And then I'd write and write and write and write and write. And then eventually I hit the end and I'm like, I think I'm done. Like, I think here it is, right? I think it's done. And then there was some restructuring of like, well, now I'm starting to see what the shape of this thing looks like, and I would restructure it to do that. And I would kill whole chapters. I had entire chapters of the book. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to write that. That's not important anymore. That chapter has been covered in other areas better than it was in that one area. So I'm going to wipe that chapter out. And so that was really effortless. Writing the more fictionally kind of stuff, adventures, campaigns.
Yeah.
I still love doing it, but it's much harder for me to write that. It could take, it's not even the act of writing it that's hard, but getting myself into the right mental state to sit down and write that seems harder. It's so much easier to see what's on the front page of Reddit.
It's oftentimes
to write that stuff down.
When I'm talking about my gaming, my GMing proclivities, I oftentimes explain to people that I almost always run fantasy.
Yeah.
I love sci-fi.
Yep.
I love other genres, but that's not where my headspace is at. That's not the thing that I'm churning.
Yeah, I'm kind of
on,
the same way. Right. I'm kind of the
so
same way.
I always
love all the genres.
But it sounds like that's the way your writing works for advice. Like you've been thinking about writing advice for 18 years consistently. So that snaps off pretty quick. Yeah. You have to put in some effort.
I've been writing. The thing is, like, I've been GMing since I was 14.
Right.
And I've been building campaign settings almost as long. And I've been writing adventure books for 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's still hard. That part is just harder. But I still love it.
But there's a difference between writing an occasional book that's those things, and or doing a home campaign that's not really for a larger audience than there is writing a weekly blog every single week for 18 years.
That's true. Right.
It's just
and the other part is like, while the fun thing is, so we're now at the stage where like Return is getting into the production side, right? Like it's been through 2 drafts. It's with Scott Fitzgerald Gray for editing at this point. I'm still open for, I mean, it's not solid yet, so I'm still open for feedback that I've been getting from people who have been reading it and stuff like that. But I'm not working on it anymore at a creative level.
Right.
Right. That's now in the production. So I have another project called Blood of the Primordials, which I've been working on. That's kind of the next City of Arches-y kind of thing that's going to be after this, right? Probably in a year and a half. And that's been going out to patrons in little bits. And the first big chunk of it went out to patrons. And so every kind of Monday and Friday, I have on my list, like, hey, write some of that. And that's my, like, hey, I now have this other creative thing that I can do.
Nice.
While the rest of this is going on. But still, it's like, it's a struggle for me to kind of sit down and really put out stuff that I'm happy with in that one.
Now, I asked you which of the things I enjoyed, which of the things you enjoyed the most. Yeah. And you told me which one was the easiest.
That's what I'm saying. So writing anything is a joy to me.
Okay.
Right. Whatever I'm writing, when I'm doing it, I love it. The writing of advice stuff is the easiest for me to do, which I still enjoy.
Right.
But writing the more adventure and campaign book stuff is also incredibly rewarding for me. It's just harder to do.
Yeah.
But I really like it a lot.
It's like it's the adage of asking somebody what their favorite breath is. It's like whichever one gets me to the next one. As long as I can keep doing it. As long as I can keep writing.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, any act of writing is something. Any act of writing like a cohesive thing, right? Like an article or a piece of a book or something like that. Those always make me feel really good when I'm doing them.
Thanks. All right. My last question then is my always present catch-all at the end. What have we not talked about that you want people to know about?
Wow. I don't know that there's anything we haven't talked about.
We've covered a lot. Everything from fountain pens and Quake all the way up to
fountain pen covered. I'm glad we got that out of the way. Yeah.
I have to say,
I was dying to talk about it.
I was thoroughly impressed that you went into that level of detail.
Impressed. I have them right here. Like I'm advertising the pen and I've got them within hand's reach.
I mostly said that as a joke and a reference to the fact that we've been talking for a very long time, and I didn't expect you to go into it.
It comes out. You can see the little nib come out of the top.
Yeah,
I love these things. Yeah, that was unexpected, right?
Yeah.
That was unexpected, right? No, I mean, I really hope that people will check out the Kickstarter and will go grab the 36-page sample. I always try to give really big samples that have good, meaningful stuff that you can look at and get a good feeling for what we're talking about here. Decide if it's for you.
How long is the final product going to be?
Probably somewhere between 160 and 192 pages.
So it's going to be about 36 pages is a hefty percentage.
Yeah, it's a good chunk. Yeah, and it's going to be maybe not quite as or just about twice the size that Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master was. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a big chunky book. It's got a lot going on in there, and and I think that the PDF really kind of tries to cover. We really tried to cover the breadth of the book with it. So we wanted useful chapters that you could look at and get ideas from and use in your game tonight. That also showed you all of those kind of big chunks that I was talking about. The 8 steps themselves, the campaign planning and how that goes, the adventure types and the toolkit, and it's got some other odds and ends in there as well. Quest models and things like that. So if anything, it's free. Go get it, download it, read it, use it, and
if you like it,
people will do that. And if you like it, please consider backing the Kickstarter because
it's only what is it, $20 for the PDF? For
$20 for the PDF, $50 for hardcover. Yeah, hardcover and PDF together for $50.
I certainly endorse all of the Sly Flourish books. I have backed every single one of them. I think I only have digital copies of all of them. I don't have any physical copies, but my library is too big, so the more I can slim it down,
the better. For the nerds, it's not just PDF. It's PDF, EPUB, and Markdown. So it's got 3 different digital versions. So you can read it easily on your phone, and the Markdown version you could add into whatever Markdown library you have, so that you have easy reference, easy searching. We really want to make the book as useful for people as possible. And now that people are using a lot of small screen devices, we want to make sure it works well on small.
But also, if you buy it in those formats, you own it. There's no protection. There's no whatever.
Make sure it's in your 3-2-1 backup, right? Yep. Back it up 3 different drives, 2 local, 1 remote, 2 different forms of media, right?
Yep. It'll be yours forever.
It'll be yours forever.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and call that the end of the episode. I want to thank you for coming on, Mike. If
Thank
people
you
want to know
so much for
more
having me.
about Mike Shea or
Yep.
what you got going on or talk to you or whatever, where do they go?
SlyFlourish.com.
And that'll send you to the website, which will have
Sends you
links to all the
everywhere.
other things.
And
It'll have
links to everything else. Yep.
Yep. And you've got a Patreon yourself
I
that
do. Yep.
helps pay the bills and gives you
Yep.
a community to interact with.
Yep,
And so you can
fantastic group. Yep, we have a
and
fantastic group that yeah, they get. I try to flood them with as much stuff as I can,
there you go.
and they get a lot of access to early stage stuff. They get to see stuff. So Blood of the Primordials, which isn't going to be out for like a year and a half, they're already getting the campaign guide for that. They already get to see what that's like. They get to offer feedback on it and help steer the direction of it and say, those are cool ideas.
And that's another setting, huh?
Yeah, another setting book. Yeah, so it's kind of a loosely connected to City of Arches.
I was going to say, is it in the same world?
So
could I put it in the same world?
If you look at, absolutely you can. And there is a City of Blades that's described in the City of Arches, and many of the components of the City of Blades that are inside City of Arches are there. But I also didn't want to repeat a lot, so I have this kind of, hey, it's sort of like in a parallel world, like a parallel overlapping world a bit. So you can decide how much of the other one you want to have in there or not, right? You can make a completely separate campaign, or you can kind of, mesh the two together. You can have sort of boundaries. So
could I put Grindelroot in that world too?
You absolutely could. So I was talking about these, like, not quite elder evils, but sort of the primordials. And I think one of the primordials might be the Grindelroot might be one of the primordials.
Okay. Right.
Ancient alien creatures that
I noticed a little as I was doing my getting back into reading City of Arches. I've noticed that there's a little bit of fourth edition creation lore in there with the primordials and the gods and all that. And
a little bit, right? I kind of like this idea of the primordials kind of building the world, and like the Titans in Greek mythology.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if people want to get a hold of me, you can email thetomeshow@gmail.com. You can also find me on social media. I am Squatch, SQUACH, on various social medias. I don't check in on them very often, but if you message me, I'll get an alert and try to go pay attention to it. But the real place to hang out is the Tome Show's Discord, where you can hang out with our fun little community of folks. And I'm going to call that the end of the Tome Show Presents Mike Shea, where we learned the origin story of an RPG superhero in this episode of The Tome.
I'm on the wall.